Okay, part two. So after my husband died, I got with childhood uh, boyfriend, love, fuck buddy, whatever you want to call him. And I proceeded to raise my kids with him for 10 years. In that 10 years, I went back to school. I got a college education. I got my paralegal degree. I became a football mom, a basketball mom, a softball mom. I did the best I could with what I knew at the time, being that I knew I was depressed, but I just kept going. So then food became my next thing. By the time I started my really heavy, hardcore drug use, like with meth and heroin, fentanyl, whatever, that I was almost 300 pounds. I think when I started my journey with drugs and substances, I was like 290, pretty much. I was miserable. I was miserable in life. I was a miserable mom. That was in 2012, I think, somewhere around there. Um, and then in late 2014, early 2015, I moved to Lynchburg with the next guy. Moved my kids from the only school district they'd ever known to a little town with no football team, and my kids were bullied very poorly there, very badly. My son started getting into trouble. Uh, he has extreme ADHD. My daughter was borderline personality disorder, so we had a lot going on. And mom wasn't no better, because at this time now I really started my hardcore drug use and alcoholism. And then fast forward to 2016, I was in my own townhome in Goshen, and for the first time ever, I got an eviction. Showed up. My son was locked up at the time, and by the time he got out, we were living in a trap over in Owensville, and he got in more trouble the same day he got out of lockup. And so it's just, that same old kind of stuff. I ended up losing custody to Children's Services. I say I gave it away because I had 2 years to get my shit together. I went through multiple felonies under ILC and couldn't stay sober long enough to really do anything. I went through Family Dependency Treatment Court with Judge Shriver in Claremont County, and he ultimately let me graduate, but so the end goal of family court is to get your kids back. I never got my son back. In 2019, I was in family court. I was on probation in 2 counties, and June 1st, my mom took placement with my son. June 29th, my mom was diagnosed with leukemia. On July 1st, I graduated Adams Recovery Center, and on August 18th, my mom died. September 25th, I failed a drug test for CPS and ultimately lost permanent custody of my son, who I was due back in court with on October 5th. There was no more time. So my stepdad took permanent custody, and from that point on, I stayed sober. I went to sober living. I stayed sober for about a year. Some people think I was sober for about 16 months, but that's not the case. I definitely relapsed before my 1 year. I can't tell you exactly what the dates were because I don't remember. But I know that I did a disservice to myself, to my AA family, to my NA family, to people that knew me and loved me, to people that supported me. I, at this point, have never lived on my own. As far as as a sober woman, I used every excuse for the next man to come into my life, and even for the next said man to continue to use and continue to not be sober. So fast forward a little bit more, and in 2021, I left a sober living house and proceeded to move in with the next home. That lasted all of about maybe a month, maybe two. And then I decided I was going to try to teach everybody that you can be a functioning addict. Obviously, it didn't work. In 2021, I also met my now husband while I was sober. And over the last 3 years, he has tried his little heart out to get me to get sober, because he knew who I was sober, and then he knew who I was as an addict now. And it almost destroyed my marriage, and we still have a lot of things to work through. But so back in October, my husband was driving, and we got pulled over, and I had substances on me with instruments, and that turned into a felony 3 indictment for drug possession. And now 7-8 months later, here I am, and I'll continue in a little bit.